on your mind is deep though. We'll speak it though. We on the air, just take it there, I'ma take it there. Hold up. Yeah, I talk about it, but I'm real about it. I speak on it, but don't catch films about it. We can chop it up like it's nothing, baby.
What's going on, everyone? We are back here live here on the OT Radio Show. And listen, man, we got a very good show for y'all today. Today, we have award-winning visionary author and founder of Her Healing Incorporated, Miss Olivia Correia, is joining us here today to talk about her book, to talk about her vision, to talk about her journey. We're going to get in depth with a whole lot of things here today, y'all. Today's going to be a good show. It's going to be an awesome show today. So, hey, let's get ready. So, go ahead and bring Miss Elizabeth in so we can have this conversation with her today. Hello. How are you?
I'm good. I love the energy. I'm good. I'm good.
Yes. So thank you for joining us here on the show. We definitely appreciate you for joining us. And I just can't wait to have conversations with you about your journey, about being an award-winning visionary, being an author, and founding your company, Her Healing Incorporated. So let's talk a little bit, because on the show we're family. So hello, cousin. How are you doing today? I hope all is well with you.
Yes, I'm good. I'm good and I'm ready to talk.
Okay. So let's dive into it. So who is Miss Elizabeth?
Oh man, who is Miss Elizabeth? This kind of reminds me of when you're in a room or in a classroom and they say, "Oh, stand up and introduce yourself." Who are you? What are your passions? What's your background?
Yes.
And most people, they get up and they're like, "Oh, I'm Mary Jane, and I'm married or divorced, or I'm a single mother, and I've got, 5 children, and I've got all these MBAs and certificates and diplomas." So I'm going to change that up for a minute. So I am Elizabeth Correia. That's the name my parents gave me. I am a passionate woman. I'm a giver. I'm a servant. I am kind. I am a survivor. I am resilient. I'm courageous. I'm a giver. I think that's it right now.
Okay.
That's who I am. When I think of who I am, I think of those things. I don't think of what I've done or what qualifies me to do the work that I've done, my education or my lack of education. I just think of what I have survived through,
Mm-hmm.
what I have given, what I have received from the world, and who I'm being. Because, to be honest, I don't really know how to do anything. So I can sit here and tell you a whole lot of things that I've done or I've accomplished,
Mm-hmm.
but I really don't know how to do anything. But I know how to be.
So let's go in depth with that. You know how to be. So
Hmm.
describe that to our listeners and people that are watching.
Okay, so how do I put this in all right, so in terms of serving or, helping or providing or doing something to contribute to the healing of the world, whether that is in youth empowerment, women's empowerment, whatever it is that whatever space I'm in. I don't really know how to do anything, but I know how to be. So I know how to be in that space. I know how to use my story to to contribute to the healing of the world. I know how to use my story to help you in that moment. I
Mm-hmm.
know how to be even when I'm in pain.
Mm, I like that. I like that.
So it's more of like, it's not my education or anything that I've learned or have mastered that's really qualified me to do the work that I do. Um,
Mm-hmm.
qualified me to connect to women and youth the way that I connect. It's more of, I know how to be. So if I'm sitting here with an 18-year-old girl who is going through relationship issues, or she's having problems at home, or she's having these self-doubt, battles in her mind, um, it's not so much that I can tell her or preach to her about what not to do. It's more of, I know what that's like, and I know what I did to overcome that or to work through that. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you how to be versus what to do.
Mm.
And I know it might sound crazy, but
No, it really don't.
it's been working
Yeah.
for
Yes.
many years.
I can see. I can see. I can see that.
Yeah.
Because me and you talked off air before we, started this interview,
Yeah.
and we talked a little bit about your book.
Mhm.
So, can you tell our listeners and people that are watching, because you just had tragedy, right?
Mm.
And let's talk about that a little bit. The inspiration behind the book. Um, if you play in my playground, right? So we won't put a smile on a face right now. Let's talk about that a little bit. The inspiration behind that book, what inspired you behind that book.
So if you played in my playground, Jesus, that's like, um, it's actually almost a 400-page book. So it's not like a 150, 200-page book. It's a it's a thick memoir. It's a big book. What inspired me to write that book, and to put my story out there, my son inspired me to do that. I had shared with him that I really wanted to write this book. This is what I want to do. I want to talk about my story because I know that it's going to help so many. I was focused on at the time, I was focused on young women. I wasn't even thinking I'm going to, you know, inspire women. I'm going to teach women how to love themselves and, um, show them through faith and passion and entrepreneurship how they can move from pain to passion to purpose to pay. I wasn't even thinking like that. I was thinking, I just want to help young girls heal. And my son was on me and he was like, Mom, you got to share your story. There's so many young women, there's so many girls who are fighting through trauma and abuse, whether it's sexual, mental, physical, spiritual, and your story's going to help them. I was born and raised in the projects in an extremely abusive household. And both my parents were severe alcoholics and they were also severely abusive. My father was sexually abusive. It started as far back as I can remember. And I shared my story with my son in terms of the abuse when he was in his early teens. And he said to me, Mom, you should talk about your story. Because at that point I had never shared my story. And he said, you should talk about your story because you're going to help a lot of girls. You should talk about your story. You should tell people your story because you're going to help a lot of girls. And I was like,
Mhm.
I don't know about that. I'm not ready to do that. It's kind of like I had been living in this dark space with all this secrecy for so many years. I wasn't ready to say, hey, this is what happened to me. And this was my past. And because I had buried it for so many years. And I was like, if I talk about that, people are going to judge me. Um, they're going to say, hey, oh, so she's not all that because, oh, that's her past. That's what she's been through. Oh, no, she's not all that, or she's not really. So I lived in this fear of what are they going to say? And my son was on me and he stayed on me. And he ended up uh, going and studying, videography and photography, and he ended up just, I mean, I'm totally fast forwarding this story. He ended up becoming a huge part, actually the foundation of the beginning stages of my business and my book.
Mhm.
And it really was him, you know. I started writing, and I ended up in emergency brain surgery. I had already written the book. It was sitting there written. Nobody knew but him. And I survived emergency brain surgery. And when I woke up from that brain surgery, I was like, okay, the book is already written. I'm going to publish it. I'm going to
Mhm.
put it out there. And he's like, Mom, like, it's time. It's time. It's time for you to let the world know, what you have been through, what you have overcome, what you have fought through, what you're still growing through.
Mhm.
And I did it. I put my story out there. I published my book, and he was my biggest cheerleader throughout the entire journey. Yeah.
So with him being the inspiration behind everything, and just the passing of him 6 months ago, how are you dealing with things now?
Mm. Ah, don't make me cry now.
I told you, we gonna talk, family. We definitely gonna talk.
Mm.
You know.
Uh, it's interesting. I spoke at a call at I run this program out of a college here in Toronto. I haven't done any youth empowerment speaking in 6 months since his passing.
Mhm.
Actually, Jesus, it's actually 7 months. I can't even believe it's 7 months. It feels like 7 days.
Mhm.
And the teacher at the program, the main, the head, one of the teachers that runs the program there said, you know, are you happy? Because I said, all I've ever fought for in my life was to be happy. You know, that's all I was thinking. Like, I just want to be happy.
Mhm.
And how am I doing now? So, to be completely transparent, because
Yes.
I want to make sure that everyone who watches this understands and knows that this is not, and can relate to me and can connect with me. This is the uh, toughest, hardest, most challenging moment a parent could ever, like, we will never go through anything that is more difficult than this. And I mean, ever. Like, and not to say that losing a spouse or a parent or is not difficult. I'm not I'm not saying that. However, losing a child, it's, you know, um, a piece of you dies. So a piece of me, a large piece, a big piece of me is dead, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
um, I'm learning how to move forward
Mm-hmm.
with this,
Mm-hmm.
like my new norm, right? I have to recreate. I was 16. He was 30 when he was 30 by the time he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
So I now have to learn this new norm, how to live without him when
Mm-hmm.
all I've really known is life with him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not so much of moving on from it, it's how do I move on with it?
Mm. So since we're talking about that healing right now, can you describe in your own words what do moving on with it looks like for you?
Hmm. So so two things that really like come to mind when I think of that. Um, Number one, it's continuing the work that we started together. So he was a mentor, he was a teacher, he was inspirational, motivational. He he was my child. He was my child. He was extremely passionate about youth empowerment, mental health, women's empowerment. These are all the things that he was passionate about. So I have to continue what him we started together.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that's a big part of it is starting what we started together. That's huge. And the second part is honoring his legacy. So who he was while he was here, the 30 years that he was here,
Yeah.
who he was as a brother
Mm-hmm.
to my son, to his brothers.
Mm-hmm.
I also have a foster son that is, you know, my son. I call him my son. He
Mm-hmm.
was also 30, so they were the same age. So it's the legacy of what he left behind as a brother, you know, his legacy as a human being, like not just I'm talking apart from me, apart from what he started with me with my business. It was
Mm-hmm.
who he was as a human being. He was extremely passionate about, you know, mental health when it comes to men, mental health when it comes to teenagers, right? So
Mm-hmm.
um, who he was as a brother. Like we don't hear about that a lot. You know, you don't hear a lot of people talk about, who are you as a brother, a younger
Yep.
brother, an older brother? Who are you as a sibling? What do you show your brother? What do you teach him? What are you doing for your siblings? Like he was all about that. And that's who he was as a brother, even with his siblings outside of me.
Mm-hmm.
He was that brother. It was like he was the leader, he was the teacher, he was the guy. So I think it's really that legacy, making sure that I continue to talk about who he was as a son, as a teacher, and as a brother. Now, when I say brother, I want to make sure I'm connecting that to friend, cousin, nephew, brother, blood brother, right? Like who he was in all those roles.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, how many people can we say that we know lived a life devoid of drama and enemies?
Mm.
That was him. And even at the funeral, like that was everyone's eulogy. He
Mm.
was that guy. So, what's helping me is remembering that.
Okay.
And what can I do to carry on that legacy? What can I do to honor that? And so I'm constantly like checking myself now, you know, I'm everything that's going on and like all these little things. It's like, okay, you know, do I need to take this on? Does this honor my son's legacy? If I engage in this, what is this saying about his legacy? If
Hmm.
I do this, what is that saying about me? He's passed away. I'm supposed to be living a certain way and honoring his legacy. So am I supposed to be engaged in this? If
Right.
I'm doing this, what does that say? So I have to constantly be checking myself. Like this is dishonoring him. If I
Hmm.
do this, this is dishonoring who he was. If I engage in this, if I say this, if I answer, if I react, like, so that is his legacy is keeping me in check, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense.
So I'm
Makes a whole lot.
using it to motivate me. I'm using it to keep me sane. I'm
Hmm.
using it to uh, make me a better person. If I could be, everyone says, Kino was your child, like he's just like you. And I'm like, nah, he's the best version of me.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, I'm aspiring to be like him.
I like that. I like that. I like that. Wow. It's today was going to be a different show, right? Um, but when me and you was talking behind the scenes, we talked a lot about trauma. We talked a lot about healing. We talked a lot about how to deal with the trauma during holiday seasons, during birthdays,
Mm,
you know, um, during special occasions. And it's it's hard. And sometimes, we say that we're coping, right? Coping with the situations and things that happen. But are we really coping with these situations? Or are we just going through life hoping that it gets better?
hmm, good question. So it's a really good question. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go through life hoping that it gets better. I don't want to do that. I, I think that if I do that, and I've had moments of that, you know, where it's like, you know, anyway, it's those dark moments, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like, I think to myself and I'm telling myself and I'm putting it out there, you know, I'm speaking it. I will not do that. I will not just hope that it gets better. I have to, because that's easy, to be honest with you. Like that's really easy. It's
Mm-hmm.
really easy to just hope that things get better. It's
Mm-hmm.
easy to stay in this dark space and just be like, you know, it's that kind of like space, that dark space of hoping and wishing and, you know, that's easy. What's hard is fighting for it to get better,
Yes.
you know, working towards it getting better, waking up every morning and exercising or praying or meditating or writing or reading or taking care of your children or taking care of yourself. That's some hard
Yes.
ish. Okay.
Yes.
Right. That's hard.
Yeah.
That's very hard. It's easy to do the other thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
easy to just be hopeless. It's easy to give up. It's easy to stay in bed. It's easy to say, this is not working. This is not going to work. I will never make it through this. I won't get through this. Um, I'm Life sucks and I'll never be okay and I will never feel good again. That's easy. That's very easy. I can
Yeah.
do that doesn't take any work. What takes work is, you know, waking up and exercising and, you know, making the smoothie and taking care of your kids and praying and meditating and reading and watching personal development audio, you know, video, taking courses. And, you know, even if you're not working, because, you know, most people who are going through trauma, who are really going through trauma and really on a healing journey, whether you're going through trauma or grief, whatever it is, it's hard to work, especially in
Mm-hmm.
the beginning stages. But in those stages, like with me, it's what are you watching? What are you listening to? What are you engaging in? What conversations are you having? Who do you have around you? What's your environment like? Who, you know, who's around you? Are you in a safe space? Or are you in a toxic space where everyone is or you're in a relationship and it's toxic and the person's bringing you down, the people around you are bringing you down. Like there's so much that comes into play here. So much. So much that comes into play. And what what I say, what we need to hang on to, what we need to hold on to right now is our space, your environment. Who do you have around you? Who are you in relation with? Like, what are your relationships like? Who's in your ear? Who's in your spirit? Who's speaking into your life? What are you watching? What music are you listening to? Because let me tell you, I know it sounds crazy, but even like something as little as music is a trigger for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a trigger.
Mm-hmm.
In the season that I'm in, like pay attention to the season that you're in. The season that I'm in, I have to be very careful of the music that I'm listening to. What are you listening to? Whether it's music, TikTok videos, Instagram reels, like what are you listening to? I'm in a very fragile season in my life, right? I'm grieving. I've lost my son. So there's certain things I cannot listen to. Even stuff that doesn't it has nothing to do with him. It's like, well, why can't you listen to that? It has nothing to do with him because it triggers me. So The same, just like how music can trigger me, people can trigger you. Who are those people that are around you? Because they're also triggers. So
Mm-hmm.
like this conversation, it can get so deep. It's like we can go real deep, 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 deep with this, but I think because I have done so much like personal development work, thank God I do have a lot of the tools that I need to help me move forward with this, right? So if I didn't have a lot of these tools, like I know that music triggers a lot of things, right? I know that toxic relationships and toxic people can trigger a lot of things from your past, whatever it is. Like you have to really be careful of what you're reading, what you're listening to, what you're engaging in, who you're around, your environment. Like all of this makes your bad situation feel like a really bad situation.
Mm. So I gotta ask this question, because we talking about this, and you brought up some key points about people around, right? And a lot of times, people around don't understand, you know, what you're going through, and it's hard to try to explain it to them
Mhm.
without feelings getting involved, right? So, from the other partner, or from the other person, or from the cousin, or from the aunt, right? And um, sometimes that gets messy,
Mm.
because a lot of times, like, you push away, but it's not meant to be pushed away. It was meant to let you know, like, I need to be in a safe space, right?
Yes.
And how that looks might not be, you want to be that safe space, but that's not the safe space that I need to be in, and a lot of times that's a hard thing to swallow, right? When you're having conversations with, you know, people, right? And that's why I will always say, therapy is always good, right? Therapy is 100 the best thing to go with, right? So, that's why I would tell my peoples out there that are listening, and people that are watching, therapy is good.
And
Therapy
no,
is always good.
100% it is.
Yeah.
And I hear you when you say not everybody understands. And I'm going to say this, okay? And I think I can say this because of the work that I've, like, um, the work that I've done prior to this. But I'm
Hmm.
going to say nobody is going to understand you. You know, even if someone has been through what you're going through or what you've gone through, like we can't expect anyone, like anybody, like even if it's a sister, a brother, a partner, a spouse, to ever understand what you're going through. If you're grieving through something, if you're healing over some kind of trauma in your life or something from the past, like it's not possible. There's no way. It's not possible for them to understand what it is that has happened or is happening, because it's not happening to them. It's happening to you.
Mm.
It's right. So I say that because I'm going through that, even with my own family. Um, there's no way that anyone will ever understand what I'm going through. And I'm okay with that. He was my son. He wasn't your son. He is my son. or if like let's just say it was my husband. Well, he was my husband. He's not your husband.
Mm-hmm.
Or my dad. He was my dad. He wasn't your dad. So you're
Mm-hmm.
not going to feel what I'm feeling. I cannot expect you to. And nothing, it doesn't matter what anybody says. No one is going to say the right thing. And I'm okay with that. If they're not going to say, if they say, I understand, I get it. Well, they're giving you their best. I don't take offense to that. You can't sit there, well, no, you don't understand. He wasn't your son, or he wasn't your father, or he wasn't your mother. You don't get it. No, that's the best they can give you. Like you can't get offended about that. They don't know, and they will never, ever, ever know what it feels like. Even if, let's just say you lost a father and you're talking to someone else who's lost a father. It's not the same. Your pain is one thing, their pain is another. You can't, like, we have to really, I think when we start getting offended and start really, backlashing, and I think that has a lot to do with unhealed wounds within us.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can't possibly expect anyone to feel what we're feeling, whether it's through grief or through trauma. You can't. I do believe that most people give you what they got.
Yeah.
So even if it's just, hey girl, I get it, I understand, or I'm so sorry this happened, you just have to move on. Listen, don't take offense to it. They're what it takes for someone to even try to be there for you when you're grieving or when you're going through trauma. They don't even know what to do. They don't even know what to say.
Yeah.
So you can't, or you shouldn't, take offense to it. Really, I do believe that people, no matter what situation it is, they give you what they got. And I know it's a hard thing to swallow, but I think once we accept that, once we acknowledge that, it's so much easier to move on with the trauma or with the grief. It's like, um, I'm not going to expect, you know, Cheryl to heal me, or Tom to help me, or Mary to make it go away. This is my thing to carry. This is my thing to carry. No one is going to fix this for me. At the same time, I will say, just make sure that you are in safe spaces.
Yep.
Because if you are not in a safe space, who, child, your grief and your trauma will feel 50,000 times worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So we're going to talk about your book a little bit, about some key principles and lessons um, from your book. How did you see these lessons translating into accountable changes in their lives in your book?
Say that again.
Okay, so we're going to talk about key principles, right, or lessons,
Mhm.
right, in your book. So, do you hope that readers can take away from your book, like lessons, and translate it into their lives?
We haven't even talked about it much at all about the book.
I know. Listen. We are on a
No,
healing journey,
I'm glad we
right?
haven't.
Right, because we are on a healing journey, and I know a lot of times, this this is different. Remember, we was talking back, say this is going to be different, from the norm, right? Because it's healing season, right,
Yeah.
right now, and going into next year, we want to call it still healing season, but it's difficult even now because of the holidays,
Yes. The
because
first,
of
first,
yes, you
yeah.
know, because of special things that you share during these times. What can you say to our people that's watching?
In terms of the
Hmm,
holiday or in terms of,
yeah, yeah, in terms of the holidays and trying to cope,
Mhm.
with
Good question. So I
this
had this
right here.
conversation with my son yesterday because it's the holidays, so I noticed like no one's really talking about like normally everyone's talking about gifts, like what are we getting and what are you getting me, and like I took note of hey, no one's really doing that this year, you know. So I had a conversation with my son, and I was like, I wish we had this mentality before Kino passed away. So this year, everyone's we're focused on just being present and just enjoying each other's presence. It's not about the gifts. Um, it's more about, memories and who we desire to be, who we want to be moving forward, our visions, our dreams, our passions, our goals. And this is the first time we've really shared that or have really put that out there, like it's not about the gifts. And so, what I would say is if you are in a grieving season, if you're healing through any form of trauma, if there's something tragic that has happened in your family,
Mhm.
in your life, I would say whether you have one person or three people or five people or 25 or 55 people, I would say to stay away from or try to get away from the whole gift thing. You know,
Okay,
what are you getting me? What am I getting you? Whether that's a spouse, mother, father, husband, wife, sibling, brother, sister. God, I swear, I wish I thought of this before. My son would always say, Mom, as much as like everybody, my son always got me like the best gifts. Like even if it was like money and gifts at the same time, he always treated me like a queen. You know,
love it.
he used to say, it should never be about that. It should always be about love and unity and memories and creating memories, you know. And I never really understood that. He would say that, but I was like, yeah, 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 but it's always about gifts, right? I always just had that in my head. So I would say, um, I know this is gonna sound a little crazy, right?
Mhm.
How about taking gifts out of the equation? Take gifts out of it. Like, what would it look like to have a Christmas with pure love, game boards, games, laughter, comedy, unity, connection? What would it look like to have a Christmas where nobody brought gifts, but they just brought themselves to the table? What would that look like?
What would that look like?
Well, mhm,
Mm.
yeah.
Wow. Moment of silence for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we are that's what we're going to focus on this year. You know, I think nothing would honor his legacy, and I say this, you know, it's if my family and anyone, his friends and his, if they hear me say that, you know, they, prior to them to knowing this, they'd say, well, she's crazy, because all Kino did was shower people with gifts, whether it was monetary or not. Like, he was that guy. So it sounds crazy for me to say that, because he was a gift giver. That's what he did.
Mm.
He gave the best gifts. But I also know that he wasn't about that, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, wow. This dead space, as they call it right now. They call it right now, but I think the time to, like, reflect, right, um, through this journey of all the love, you know, that was shared in the legacy. So we're gonna have to bring you back on, right? Because we're gonna have to bring you back on so we can literally talk about the book.
No, it's not about the book. It's not about the book.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This right here was more healing.
Yeah,
Try to understand what healing looks like,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I hope that the people watching this, they can have a glimpse of understanding how it looks.
Hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna have to bring you back on, so we can literally talk about the book. Because this one was a good one. I love this.
Yeah, me too. I'm like,
Yeah.
the book was okay. It's just, it's a tool, and I get it, you know, but I think the message behind the book, you know, was so much, you know, if you played in my playground, even the message behind it, like, if you played in my playground, you would understand and see life through my eyes.
Hmm.
So it's, to be honest, like, this interview was about the book.
Yeah.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. Like, it really, it is about the book.
Yeah.
I didn't go into detail, but everything I shared is about the book,
Yeah.
which was my son.
Yeah. Look into the
Mhm.
eyes. Yeah. You played in my playground. Yeah.
So I'll be back.
Yes. Yes, you will be back. Yes, you will be back. I'm guaranteeing that you will be back. What can we expect to see next year in 2024? What can we expect to
Oh,
see?
oh man. There's everything I will do in 2024 will be to honor his legacy. I don't want to. There's, you know, there's a few things that I'm working on. Um, there's a few things that I'm working on. The book will definitely be on the big screen.
Mhm.
I'm not going to share more than that. It will be on the big screen. I will make sure that his life, everything he was passionate about, everything he did, everything he loved will be. I will make sure the world will be inspired by how he lived, who he was being in the world. Like, I will make sure that youth across the globe. I mean, I'm a women's and girls empowerment speaker, but I want to make sure that his life, his legacy will be honored when it comes to youth empowerment. You know, I have so many things that I want to share with youth in terms of how he lived his life, how he stayed out of trouble as a young man when all odds were against him. You know, growing up with no father, with no real male role model in his life, but yet, you know, he loved and respected women, never disrespected a woman ever in his life, loved his mother, honored his mother. Like, there were so many things about him that really, according to society, should never have been, if that makes any sense. You know, so I'll make sure to carry that on. Everything that he was, I will carry on. In you know, I've got his foundation that I'm building, and a few other things that I'm working on that but 2024 will be, I would say, a part 2 to my playground.
Okay.
So the first one was, if you played in my playground. I think the second one will be more like my playground.
Okay.
Yeah. Without saying too much.
Without saying too much.
Without
Love it.
saying too much.
So, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I would say thank you so much for joining us here on the show. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
You're coming back.
I'll be
You're
back.
coming back. Yes.
Yes, I will.
And before you leave, I need you to tell everybody your IGs and your websites where they can find you.
Yeah, so my website is elizabethcorreia.com, and my IG is MS Elizabeth Correia. So MS, I got hacked a few months ago, but I'm rebuilding. So definitely follow me. I'm rebuilding now at MS Elizabeth Correia. Elizabeth Correia. Yes. Still getting used to that new handle.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us here on the show. I appreciate you. I'm going to connect with you. I'll DM you. Or matter of fact, just stay on for a second before we can talk.
Got it. I'll be right here.
Okay. All right, y'all. Well, thank y'all for joining us here on the show. We definitely appreciate y'all joining us here on the show today. This was a very good show today. It was a healing journey. We call this a healing journey today. How did that look for you? I would say you only know. No one else don't know. So we're gonna end it. And I'm gonna tell you. If someone asks you how you doing, tell them that you're doing better than yesterday. All right. So, whoo, good show, good show. I love the show. Love the show. Very authentic. Um, we learned a lot. Learned a lot. Felt a lot. Loved a lot. Hugged a lot. So I love y'all. Y'all be good. And check me out. I'll be doing Friday at the next tomorrow at 7 p.m. here on YouTube. We're going to be jumping Friday at the next. Y'all know how it is. Y'all know how it be. So once again, I love y'all. Y'all be good. Thank you for watching. And I will see y'all tomorrow at 7 p.m. on Friday at the next. All right, y'all. Peace.